I refused to help my drunk friends, and it ended horribly. So, I, 30F, met Tyler, 31M, and Chloe, 30F, during our second year of college. Tyler was the loud, funny guy who could make any room feel alive, and Chloe had a warm, magnetic energy that drew people in. They were usually at the center of everything, and for a while, I was happy to be part of their group. Most nights revolved around parties or bars. I didn't drink, not out of judgment, but because I'd seen what it could do. My dad struggled with alcoholism, and I'd promised myself I wouldn't go down the same path. That never caused tension between us. The first time I declined to drink around them happened at one of Tyler's apartment parties. He offered me a beer. I said, "I don't drink, but thanks." He shrugged and handed it to someone else, while Chloe grinned, "More for us," and we all laughed. In those early years, our friendship felt genuine. We studied together, took weekend trips, celebrated birthdays, and supported each other through breakups. I drove them home when they'd had too much to drink, sat with them when they cried, and sometimes covered for them at work. It never felt like a burden. I liked being the steady one, the person who made sure everyone got home safely. After college, we all ended up in the same city. By coincidence, or as Chloe liked to say, fate. I started working in healthcare administration. Chloe joined a marketing firm, and Tyler bounced between sales jobs. We still met regularly, for dinners or trivia nights, and while they teased me for not drinking, it felt harmless, just part of our usual banter. Over time, things began to shift. Tyler started drinking more after losing a job, and Chloe often matched him drink for drink. Nights out stretched into entire weekends of bar hopping, followed by Sunday morning texts full of half-laughing, half-regretful stories. I joked about their livers hating them, but I was beginning to feel out of place. The reality hit me one night at a friend's birthday party. The bar was crowded, loud, and sticky, and I had planned to stay sober to make sure everyone got home safely. But as the night went on, it became clear I wasn't really part of it anymore. Tyler swayed as he talked, slurring his words, while Chloe laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny. When someone handed me a shot just to celebrate, I declined. Tyler rolled his eyes and said loudly enough for nearby people to hear, "Oh, come on, can't you just relax for once?" I smiled awkwardly. "I'm good, thank you. You know I don't drink." "Yeah, but it's weird, isn't it?" Chloe added, leaning against the bar. "We're all here to have fun, and you're just watching." A few people laughed, and I felt heat rise in my face. I wanted to say something, but what? I'd done this before. I'd been here before. But something in their tone was different. Not friendly teasing, but almost contempt. I tried to brush it off, but later that night, when Chloe lost her phone, and Tyler almost picked a fight with a stranger, I was the one handling it. I found her phone and got Tyler outside before things got ugly. Then I called rides for everyone. By the time their cab pulled away, they were laughing like nothing had happened. I stood on the curb, watching the taillights disappear, feeling like the only adult in a room full of kids. A week later, Chloe texted, "Sorry if we were jerks last weekend. We were just wasted, LOL." I sent a thumbs up emoji and told myself it didn't matter. I didn't feel angry, just tired. Tired of always being the one to hold things together. I started skipping hangouts and answering fewer messages. They barely noticed until Chloe's birthday. She'd planned a big bar crawl for weeks and insisted I come. I said I'd meet them at the first stop, but probably wouldn't stay late. She replied with a laughing emoji and said, "You're no fun when you're sober. But fine, at least you're coming." That night, I showed up right on time. Everyone else was already a few drinks in. Tyler hugged me a little too tightly and smelled like tequila. Chloe was glowing with that happy, drunk energy that always came before things got messy. They both kept trying to hand me drinks, and I kept declining. At one point, Chloe leaned across the table and said, "You know what your problem is? You think you're better than us." The table went quiet. Even Tyler blinked in surprise. "What?" I said, taken off guard. "You always act so calm, like you're above it all," she continued, slurring slightly. "You just sit there with your water, acting like you're the only responsible adult in the room." I tried to laugh it off and said, "I'm just being myself. I'm not trying to make anyone feel inferior." "Sure," she said, rolling her eyes. "You just love to play the saint." Tyler chuckled and said, "Chloe's got a point. You could loosen up once in a while." Something in me snapped. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just stood up, put a 20 on the table, and told them I was heading home. Chloe called after me, "Oh, come on, don't be like that." But I didn't turn back. That was the night I decided I was done being their safety net. After that, I stopped answering their late-night calls. When Chloe texted me one Friday night asking for a ride home, just in case, I told her I wasn't available. And when Tyler messaged me at 2 a.m. one weekend saying, "Bro, Chloe's throwing up everywhere, LOL, we might need help," I just ignored it all. At first it felt strange, like I was abandoning them. But after a few weeks, I realized how quiet life felt without the constant worry. I didn't miss the chaos as much as I thought I would. But then, one Friday evening, I was sitting at home watching a movie when my phone buzzed. It was Chloe. The text said, "Can you come get me, please?" I don't feel safe with Tyler driving. It was 1:30 a.m. I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to grab my keys and go. I'd done it 100 times before, but then I paused. Chloe knew better. She always called a ride when I wasn't there if things got out of hand. Tyler, as reckless as he could be, usually listened when someone told him not to drive. I typed back, "You should call a cab or use a rideshare. Please don't get in the car with him while drunk," and went to bed, fully expecting that this would be enough. 2 hours later, my phone rang. The number was unknown. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. It was a police officer. He asked if I knew Tyler and Chloe. His calm, serious tone instantly told me this was not a routine call. There had been an accident involving them. Both were alive and had been checked out at the hospital, though Chloe was still injured. He added that they had tried to reach me because my number was listed as an emergency contact. For a few seconds, I just sat there, gripping the phone, trying to understand what I was hearing. The officer wouldn't tell me much over the line, just that there had been a crash late that night and that someone else had been badly injured. I asked if I needed to come in, and he said no. They had all the information they needed for now. When the call ended, I just sat in the dark. I wanted to cry but couldn't. My mind kept replaying Chloe's last message. Later that morning, the story was on the local news. There had been a collision at an intersection downtown. Tyler had run a red light. His car hit another vehicle, and the driver of that car hadn't survived. I didn't need the reporter to say his name. One glance at the wrecked car on the screen was enough for me to know it was Tyler. I stayed on the couch for hours, staring at nothing. When Monday came, I didn't go to work, and I didn't answer anyone's messages. When I finally checked my phone, there were messages from mutual friends. Some just said, "Did you hear?" Others were angry at me saying, "Why weren't you with them? You could have stopped this." I stared at that message for a long time, caught between guilt and disbelief. A few days later, I went to the hospital. Chloe was still there, recovering from her injuries. When I walked into her room, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. There were bruises, bandages, and a dull, hollow look in her eyes. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she whispered, "You didn't come." A dozen explanations ran through my mind, but none felt right. All I could whisper was, "I told you not to get in the car." Her lip trembled. I didn't think he'd actually drive, but he insisted he was fine. We both fell silent again. There wasn't much else to say. Eventually, a nurse came in, and I took that as my cue to leave. Later, I learned that Tyler had already been taken into police custody. The following weeks were overwhelming. There were court hearings, news coverage, and people whispering at work. Everyone seemed to have an opinion. Some said it was tragic but inevitable, and others said they hoped. Tyler got what was coming to him. I didn't join the conversations. Tyler was charged with vehicular manslaughter and driving under the influence. His blood alcohol level had been more than twice the legal limit. He tried to argue that he hadn't realized the light was red, that it was a mistake, but the surveillance footage told another story. When the verdict was delivered, he was sentenced to several years in prison. Chloe testified at the trial. From what I heard, it wasn't easy for her. She'd been drinking too, and the prosecution made sure everyone knew that. She said she'd told him not to drive, but when he insisted he was fine, she didn't argue and didn't want to make things worse. After the verdict, she disappeared from social media. Mutual friends said she moved back in with her parents in another state. For a long time, I tried not to think about any of it, but it lingered in the back of my mind. Sometimes at night, I'd wake up thinking I'd heard my phone buzz. Sometimes I'd dream that I was standing at that intersection, frozen, watching headlights blur past. Every so often, I'd get messages from people asking what really happened, as if there were some hidden version of the story I wasn't telling. Some asked if I felt responsible. I never replied. For a while, the messages stopped, and I kept myself busy with work, the gym, and running errands. Then, about 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Tyler. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't long, just a few pages. He wrote that he was trying to make peace with everything that had happened, that prison was forcing him to face his demons, but most of the letter was about me. He wrote that I had abandoned them, that if I'd been there, things might have gone differently, and that my absence had left them to make stupid decisions. I read it twice, folded it up, and put it in a drawer. I told myself it wasn't worth it, but the letter stayed in my mind longer than I expected. There's a kind of guilt that doesn't fade even when you know, logically, that it isn't your fault. It's not about responsibility, it's about what ifs. What if I'd answered that call? What if I'd gone to get her one last time? Maybe no one would have died. Maybe Tyler wouldn't be in prison. Maybe Chloe wouldn't be broken physically and emotionally. But I kept thinking, how many times was I supposed to save them? They'd made fun of me for being the responsible one, for staying sober, for refusing to join in their chaos. And yet, every time something went wrong, they expected me to clean it up. There's only so many times you can catch someone before they decide falling is fun. Eventually, months passed, then a year. I heard bits and pieces about them through mutual acquaintances. Chloe was in therapy, apparently trying to rebuild her life. Tyler had joined a rehabilitation program in prison. People said he'd changed. Then one day, I got another letter, this time from Chloe. It was short, handwritten in shaky pen. She apologized for what she'd said, and for everything that had happened. She didn't expect forgiveness, but wanted me to know she finally understood why I'd pulled away. I didn't respond, but I kept the letter. Going through all of that made me realize what I wanted from my friendships. I wanted people who respected my boundaries, who didn't pressure me to drink, and who didn't expect me to be a built-in safety net. Some of our old friends still don't talk to me. Others have come around, saying they understand now. That used to bother me, but not anymore. Since then, I've made new friends who don't make drinking a personality trait and don't rely on me to carry them through their worst nights. When I go out now, I tell people up front that I don't drink. Most don't care. Some even admire it. It's strange how something that once made me an outsider now feels like the thing that saved me. All right, that's all for now. Make sure you like and subscribe.